Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Grace MacKinley, and I am a registered psychologist here in New South Wales. I'm going to introduce you to a relatively new case that I've been involved with over the last couple of months. Due to confidentiality, I have changed people's names, but I just wanted to work through with everyone a complex web of ethics and ethical practice regarding working with minors and their families, as well as a touch on a few other aspects, such as working with individuals from the LGBTQI community, and in addition, young girls, which opens up an array of ethical guidelines and practices that we need to take into consideration. Chantel is a 16-year-old girl, an only child, and her parents are very career-oriented. Chantel's father spends a lot of time away from the family home, travelling overseas for work, and her mother, Peter, is also extremely focused on her career in politics. Both Peter and Chantel's father hold conservative religious and political orientations that Chantel has grown up with. Shortly before Chantel came to see me, Peter said she was starting to become moody, irritable, reserved, starting to skip school and show lower grades in her studies, all of which was very unlike her up until this point. So clearly Peter has been worried about Chantel and brought her along to me to try and help. After a month or so meeting with Chantel, she shared with me that she thought she might be gay and had recently started a relationship with a 25-year-old female she met online. Due to her parents' religious views, she knows they consider homosexuality to be morally wrong, and Chantel felt that her mother especially was very rigid in her thinking and would not accept her. So this case contains numerous ethical issues and dilemmas requiring the application of an ethical decision-making model. Personally, I often refer to the Kuchar and Keith-Spiegel's 8-step process. This model requires me to take a step back and evaluate all the possible actions I have available to me once I have consulted relevant codes, guidelines, and laws, and to decide and act according to the most ethical solution possible. So we need to examine whether there are any legal issues pertaining to this case. In New South Wales, the age of consent is 16 years, and therefore Chantel's relationship with her girlfriend of 25 years is legal. One thing to be aware of in situations such as this is to ask the client when the relationship started, as it does have the potential to be an ethical or legal issue if the online relationship started when Chantel was under the age of 16 and was sexual in nature. So when asked, Chantel did state this relationship was only relatively new, and she was 16 at the time of meeting her girlfriend and they started dating. So therefore, there is no ethical or legal issue there regarding age that we need to broach. We have a couple of key ethical issues rising in this case. We need to ensure we keep Chantel and her needs as our number one priority, and we must be confident that any action we take is to benefit Chantel and her needs. Because she is a minor and was referred to the practice by her mother, Peter and her husband must be kept informed regarding Chantel's sessions, however, only to the extent that this will not harm Chantel in any way. This relates to Section B4, provision of psychological services at the request of a third party under the APS Code of Ethics. In our position, this is a very thin line to tread between sharing what we're legally obligated to share with the parents of a minor and client confidentiality. So we must also remember that the role of Chantel's parents in her life is extremely important at the age of 16, and Chantel is still very dependent on her parents. It is crucial that we keep the stability of this relationship at the forefront of our treatment, and any action we take must benefit the family as a whole. While it has been my obligation to share with Peter and her husband, I've ensured that Chantel is comfortable with the degree or amount of information I am sharing. Establishing and maintaining trust with Chantel comes under the umbrella of fidelity and responsibility. It is apparent that Chantel does not feel comfortable enough to talk to her parents about her sexuality, so we need to respect this as a psychologist and endeavour to grow Chantel's confidence so she's able to eventually talk openly and honestly with her parents. We also need to show respect for Chantel, as well as her mother and father. Effective clinical practice requires a psychologist to keep parents actively engaged in a child's therapy. Due to the nature of the family relationship, with Chantel's father spending a lot of time overseas and away from the family home, I established both Peter, who referred Chantel, and her husband consented to treatment for Chantel, are both actively involved in determining treatment goals, and both have access to treatment information. So from a risk management perspective, I tend to avoid treating underage clients without the informed consent from both parents. Above all else, though, we need to respect Chantel's wishes and her right to privacy, confidentiality, and self-determination. Section A5 of the APS Code of Ethics refers to confidentiality, meaning we must safeguard information obtained from Chantel. We do not want to put any added stress, pressure, or isolation on her than she is most likely already experiencing. The mental health should be a main priority. So, when working with a client who is a child, I usually discuss the issue of confidentiality with all parties initially and attempt to come to a mutually agreeable arrangement in which everyone feels comfortable. In this instance, I let Peter and her husband know that I am obligated to keep them up to date with Chantel's therapy sessions. However, I will not share any sensitive information that Chantel is not comfortable with me sharing, obviously unless it has impacts upon Chantel's safety, the safety of others, or the law. So this way Chantel feels as though she can trust and confide in me, and her parents feel confident and happy in the services I'm providing and where they stand in the therapy process. So there are a number of ethical issues to consider within Chantel's case. We must address sections and standards of the APS Code of Ethics. Young people, and in particular young girls, require special needs and show particular vulnerabilities that do not apply when working with adults. The ethical guidelines relating to this case include the ones on confidentiality, psychological practice with lesbian, gay and bisexual clients, psychological practice with women and girls, and working with young people. The three general principles from the APS Code of Ethics, respect, propriety and integrity, relate to every client and case that we encounter. As I stated earlier, we need to respect the rights and dignity of Chantel as well as her mother and father. Taking this one step further, we must acknowledge Chantel's moral rights and her rights to participate in decisions affecting her life, such as her own right to share her sexuality when she feels comfortable. So this decision should not be up to us as her psychologist if we are keeping Chantel's best interest at the forefront of treatment. So it is crucial when dealing with minors to nurture the child-parent relationship, however, also to remain aware of potential conflicting views that may surface during treatment. We must consider conflicts that may arise between Chantel's sexuality and her parents' strong religious views and prepare and act accordingly. So a warm and communicative child-parent relationship plays a very important role in adolescence, and this is what ultimately we must work towards. Propriety and our professional responsibility are covered under Section B3 of the APS Code of Ethics. We must take the responsibility for the foreseeable consequences of our conduct and take reasonable steps to prevent any harm occurring as a result of our actions. If we were to share Chantel's sexuality with her mother and father without Chantel's permission, this may intensify Chantel's feelings of vulnerability, depression, lack of motivation, and low mood and self-esteem. In taking this course of action and hearing the news from someone other than their daughter, it may also catch Peter and her husband off guard and trigger negative or defensive feelings instead of hopefully care and support if they were to hear it from Chantel herself. Within the general principles, we have integrity and Section C2 communication that relate heavily to this case. I've had to understand and really take into consideration the fact that Chantel is a young female and any decisions and actions she makes or we suggest and their consequences may feel heightened to a young girl in her position. The context of Chantel's relationship with her parents means that we need to ensure she feels heard and supported and comfortable, and hopefully in time and with our support, this will lead to her having the confidence to speak openly with her parents. As registered psychologists as well, it is our role to provide our clients with unbiased and open-minded suggestions. We need to be aware of our own views prior to advising someone else on a plan of action. Before making suggestions for Chantel, I needed to first assess whether I had any prejudices or strong attitudes concerning same-sex relationships, relationships with a larger age gap, or relationships between an adult and a child that was still attending school. If I did, my next step would be to refer her and her family to another psychologist after speaking with Chantel and explaining the situation. Again, this was not the case, and I have continued to see Chantel But I just want everyone to remember that they need to take this into consideration along with other factors that may influence your advice in your professional careers, such as your age and gender compared to your clients, your values and cultural differences. So following a consultation with another senior psychologist from Dubbo and Family Planning New South Wales, I was able to generate a range of possible actions to take concerning Chantal and her parents. Our first would be obviously telling Peter and her husband personally about Chantal's sexuality, which, as we discussed earlier, would not benefit anyone involved. Our second option would be to continue to provide counselling to Chantal until she felt comfortable and confident enough to tell her parents about her sexuality and consider that to be job done. While this would be helpful to a degree for Chantal, I do not think that we should leave it at this, as the family dynamic may be strained and each party feeling stressed and confused. So we can take this one step further and suggest Chantal's parents join the therapy sessions so we can monitor and encourage open and effective communication. Another option would be to involve referring the family to a family psychologist who specialises in this field. However, in this case, I think it is beneficial for myself to continue to see Chantal after establishing such a strong level of trust. It's also important, I think, definitely to connect Chantal with some LGBTQI support groups and youth groups in her area, such as Reach Out, so she can extend her support networks. Once Chantal feels comfortable, I would really like to allow Peter and her husband to sit in on some sessions and encourage safe communication between the three. I hope that with my support, Chantal will be able to talk to her mother and father about her sexuality, and I am able to nurture the family relationship to allow Chantal and her parents to express their opinions and feelings freely and respect each other's views. I think it will be crucial to work on areas of attachment during this time as well, such as managing feelings and behaviours, building the self-esteem of Chantal, and helping the three family members to trust each other despite conflicting views, the potential for conflicting views. So this case has been, and I'm sure will continue to be, one brimming with ethical issues and decisions. I hope I've emphasised just how important it is that we are constantly referring to the APS Code of Ethics and Guidelines and any laws that pertain to our cases and clients. We need to be continuously advancing our knowledge, have awareness of our own values and morals, and a clear interpretation of what is in the best interest of the client. Regardless of how confident we feel in our practice and knowledge, it is important to apply ethical decision-making models such as the Kuchar and Keith-Spiegel's 8-step process that I mentioned earlier, so we can recognise any ethical issues, examine the situation, and take time to reflect on the options available to us. In future cases, we need to apply this decision-making process to ensure that we are avoiding any harm, and above all, ensuring our actions and suggestions benefit the client to the highest degree. So I've just got a couple of references here as well, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Thanks very much.